I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start off tonight with some thank yous. We have to thank Alan Gary for allowing us to come up here and Van Corporation and join this beautiful place that they have and the facilities that we have. I want to thank Maurice, our councilman Maurice, Gary, for setting up the arrangements here. I have a special thanks to Dawn Ryder, who's got me through the technology part of this whole thing and setting it up and how it's going to work. And that's to keep our fingers crossed that I don't go to some web page. It's probably not something that we should put up today. I want to thank our town planning board and zoning boards are here, and for the most part, these are the folks that do all the work on our town planning and zoning when we come to go before them. They're all sitting down here. I just wanted to have the town planning board stand up so you know who they are. It's okay to clap for these people. They work hard for us. And the zoning board, who's here from the zoning board? Oh, there we go. One up, one down. The planning board is a lot more active than the zoning board. The zoning, so, just so you know. I want to thank the zoning regulations committee. They're here. They've been doing also. You'll find out more about what these people have been doing as the meeting goes on. I want to thank our Hamlet committees who have been working on the zoning. If any members of the Hamlet committees are here, I don't see Parks. But there was somebody waiting around. Amy Amaral from the Parks committee. We have White Sulphur Springs committee here. I saw Max somewhere. And wave. They don't stand. Okay. We have our Future Swan Lake committee. They haven't started yet. Nancy Levine is here, and Bill Lewis is here, and who else is here? And Gal is here. And most of all, I want to thank you, the citizens and taxpayers, for coming here tonight and showing that you care enough about our future here in Liberty to be part of charting the course for the growth and prosperity of our sweet land of Liberty. I've been supervisor for over a year now, and I believe that getting our zoning right is probably the most important thing that I can do in the next 3 years. As you know, each of the towns in Sullivan County must raise enough money to pay their own bills. One way we meet our revenues is to raise the taxes. The other way we meet our revenue needs would be to increase our assessments in the town. If we can increase our assessed value and more tax-paying entities here, the rate will lower for everyone. And that's pretty much my goal. We need to increase our assessment because after a number of years with 2% tax caps, all of the town boards and municipalities there's not much left to cut until we start cutting services. So in order to maintain the level of services that we have, we're going to have to raise our assessments. I'm just trying to point out the importance of our economic development in the town. And that's where zoning comes in. Because zoning, it's the job of zoning to balance preserving the quality of life that we enjoy and encouraging the growth of our town's tax base. Just a couple of housekeeping things here. There were 2 maps handed out. One is the pre-zoning and one is the 2011 zoning. The 2011 zoning is the current zoning. Everything that we have on the presentation tonight is on our webpage, and you'll see that address a number of times tonight. And if you happen to bring an iPad or anything, there's a guest wireless here that you can actually post up and check out the charts and the maps and everything right from your iPad or your iPhone or whatever you have. So welcome. I'm going to sit down a minute, and this is one I wish I would do it so I could have my gown on so that you wouldn't see the false spot. Now everybody knows. What we're going to talk about tonight is where we've been in the zoning process, where we are in the zoning change process, revision process, and where we are going from there. If in case you were wondering where did all this come from, the 2011 zoning changes were prompted by a comprehensive plan that was started in 2006 and finished in 2008, where a number of citizens got together and created a goals and for the community. There's 10 goals. And one of those goals, I'm just going to skip down here a second to show you, you can see it from where you're sitting, but these are the folks that serve on that committee, those committees. They're your friends, they're your neighbors. It wasn't something that was dreamed up by somebody that's not here. These folks are still here. We're still here trying to get it straight. Get it correct. But if you go through your comprehensive plan, which is on the web page, you get down to page 9, 7, 9, somewhere. You get there. There we go. The number one goal that they came up with was to balance conservation and development to provide for sustainable growth. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's the purpose of zoning. The zoning allows us to do that, to keep the quality of life that we have that provide for economic growth and existence. Sustainability. I use the balance because that's what we're trying to do. We have to balance the needs. You know, we love our wide open spaces, we love our mountains, we love our farmland, we love our view sheds, but we still need to create enough areas where people can grow their businesses and increase our tax base. I hope you got the message by now that I'm really trying to increase it. And it's a balance, like I said, between the beautiful country that we have, and that's Walnut Mountain in the background, Town Park up there, and resorts and things like that, and we have a balance with it. In March of 2011, to further the goals of the comprehensive plan, changes were made to the district intent charts, which I didn't have to hand out tonight, but they're on the webpage. Those are the charts that tell you what you can do in the zone that you're in. That's what you can do. The town zoning map, which we have up here, we have on the webpage, and we have in your hands, I hope. And with some great expense, so we could all have our own. Those are the maps. That tells you where you can do what you can do. Push the wrong button, see what you get. Okay. So where we've been, when Dean Ferrand, if anybody knows Dean, who's our councilman, when we took office in January 2012, Dean developed a plan to continue revising, because when they got done with the map and the charts, that wasn't the end of it. There's a lot of work to be done to make sure that it's working for us. And at this point, I want to turn it over to Dean to explain, because it was basically Dean's plan, came to the board, was approved, of how we are going to systematically work on what we need to do. Yeah, why don't
All right, before I get into that part of it, I felt it was important to first talk about some commonalities I think everybody in this room has. And the commonalities that I came up with is I think that we're all concerned about our taxes in the town of Liberty. What we got out of the comprehensive plan is that was one of the major issues. We were also concerned about the lack of available jobs near Liberty. We were also concerned about the availability of shopping. We were concerned about the quality of life in our open spaces. And by virtue of the fact that this has been going on for nearly 6 years and we have a very good turnout tonight, I think we all believe that zoning plays a significant role in all those issues. So I wanted to address what I think right out front, what some of the strong points are in the new zone. And I'm going to be brief here, but just get them out. One of the things that changed dramatically in the new zoning is that we used to have zoning that would cross property lines, would in some cases cross through the middle of a home. And one of the fundamental points in the comprehensive plan was that we were going to make sure that zoning followed property lines and or roads. The second issue that was a concern during the comprehensive planning process is that we felt that there was not sufficient clarity in the districts. and that we would strive to make sure there was clarity in the districts. What I mean by that is that if you look at the old District Intent chart versus the new District Intent chart, we really try to say if it's an IC zone, it should serve IC purposes. If it's an SC zone, it should serve SC further and further. What I want to do is real quickly go through just a brief overview of some of the differences between the two so we all kind of get on the same page. I'll start with the IC district. Prior to 2011, the IC district basically encompassed 3% of the land in Liberty. After 2011, it's 2%. The primary change in that district is that housing is now considered a non-conforming use. The SC district was 2%, it's now 4%. Again, the primary change is that housing is considered a non-conforming use. RS was 10%, it's now 11.3. The change we made in RS is we broke RS into two districts, an R1 and an R2. The R1 being pretty much a mirror of the prior RS district, the R2 being a higher density housing district. The RD was 61% of the town, it's now 42%, and it pretty much eliminated the manufacturing non-agricultural use in that district and multifamily use. The AC was 19 and is now 41, and it pretty much, the major difference there is it eliminated the multifamily housing. The combination of the RDAC, which has always been our open space zones, went from prior to 2011 80 to after 2011 about 83%. So as Charlie alluded to, in 2012 when we got on board, we knew that the map and the district intent chart were going to continue to need changes. We also knew that the regulations were going to need changes, and those are the actual laws. So we devised a set of committees, the first committee being what we call the Zoning Regulations Committee, and we asked those folks to look at specific zoning laws that we had learned through the planning board process, through talking to residents in the town of Liberty, property owners in the town of Liberty, and they pointed out some laws that they felt were not clear and needed some clarification. So we asked these folks to start looking at them, and the town board assigned the hierarchy of laws we wanted to look at first. We then decided we needed a hamlet committee for each one of the hamlets. And we asked those hamlet committees to take the 2011 map and the 2011 district intent chart and look at it now hamlet specific. We asked them to use a comprehensive plan so we understood how those were arranged at. But we wanted them to go out, primarily what we wanted them to do is go out and go to their neighbors and talk to their neighbors and say, okay, this is what's here, how does it work for you? Because one of the things that we want, and again, I'm tickled pink we have this many people tonight, is we want as much involvement as possible so that when we say we got it right, we actually did get it right. The one committee that we added that we did not have in 2011 was the Quality Control Committee. I don't have members for that yet because we don't need them yet, but if there's anybody here that has an interest in quality control and knows what it is, you can contact myself or Charlie or Chris or Maurice or Tommy and say, hey, I wouldn't mind doing that. The reason we need to have that is because we didn't have it in 2011. Quite frankly, there were some mistakes made in there that nobody intended for it to be that way, but because you didn't have somebody checking somebody else's work, it just happened. It's not a good practice to have somebody check their own work because you just miss things, okay? So that's a learning lesson out of that. What I did is, and we don't have it available tonight because I, again, got to do quality control on it, but what I did is I took the old district intent chart and the new district intent chart and I put them side by side in comparison, and I color-coded them on what things have been eliminated or moved or changed so that we're going to put that, I talked to Charlie tonight, we're going to put that on the website also so that people, when they go to the AC district and say, okay, how did it change? So you don't have to go back and forth between two charts. You try to make things as simple as possible. The closing statement I have, In my opinion, one of the things we're here tonight to talk about is, do we continue to move forward, or do we go back to what we had? And a lot of work has been put into the comprehensive plan, a lot of work has been put into the map and the district intent chart. No one ever said it was perfect or final. But the reality is that we're moving in a new direction and a proper direction from my point of view. As I've said to many people that I've talked to over the last several months about this, the prior zoning was in existence through some of this country's most profitable times, and if we're all being honest, Liberty didn't change much in those times with this prior zoning. I don't understand, I don't see the logic in going backwards to something that we already know didn't produce what we all say we want in the town of Liberty. So whether we make changes to this and move forward, or we go backwards, we still have to go through the entire public hearing process again. And to me, going backwards to something we know didn't work, only to move forward in another direction, seems to be spending time that we don't need to spend. I would suggest strongly that what we do is we work out the bugs in this, and quite frankly, there are a lot. We work out the bugs in this and continue to move forward so that shortly here we can have a marketing plan for the town of Liberty and bring those businesses in that we want. So with that, I'm done. What Charlie and I talked about a little earlier was we just want a quick raise of hands of how many people have comments they want to make, because we're trying to do good time management here. So we're just going to get a quick idea of who's going to speak. Okay, so good, all right. I mean, not that if you didn't raise your hand, you can't speak. We're just trying to make sure we don't have somebody spend 20 minutes talking and there's 30 people that say she hasn't got enough time. So with that, I think we want to open it up to.
Well, I want to go back
Sorry, go ahead.
1 second. Two things. Number one, again, it's housekeeping, bookkeeping and stuff. We have if we have spurred your desire to want to serve on one of these committees, we have an opening on the planning board for an alternate right now. So if you give me a letter of intent, the board will review the folks that apply that would like to be on the planning board, and you could go right from sitting there to sitting on the planning board as an alternate. So best way to get involved is to see what these folks do and get part of the system. Stop in at a planning board meetings the first Tuesday of the month, see what they do in the town hall. The second thing, as far as I'll think of it, about housekeeping, I'll think of it. Before we go, we wanted to update the zoning regulations committee and the.
Oh, yeah.
What they've accomplished so far. We'll start with zoning regulations.
We'll start with the zoning reg. Where we are, and Mike, if I miss something, please feel free to tell me it, okay? The zoning regulations committee right now has been given the charter to look at non-conforming use and to look at the multifamily regulations. They are in draft phase of both of those. They've opened up conversations with one side of the aisle, and they're going to open up conversations shortly with the other side of the aisle, so that, again, what we try to do as we move forward with this, that we have information from both sides so we can make hopefully a compromise decision on what to do with this. The Hamlet committees, I know Matt's here, and again, the same thing goes for you. If I miss something, please tell me, but I believe that they've been meeting, and best put, they've been educating themselves and preparing themselves to go out to residents and find out what residents feel, but they needed some time, and I think it was smart for them to take some time to make sure they understood what they were looking at first. Do we have anybody here from Parksville? Yes.
And West and Amy's here.
Parksville is quite further ahead than the other Hamlet committees for one reason and one reason only, is because their Hamlet was devastated by Route 86. Okay? They took it on their own years ago, 7 years ago, probably, about 7 years ago, to start looking at how they wanted Parksville to look. They are actually a very good model for the other Hamlet committees to go sit at one of their meetings and see what they've done, see what they've come up with. They have provided us with a draft zone that they want, a draft map that they want. And the map is going to need to include a bit more than they have. They know that because they included just the area that's been totally devastated, and Parkshill's more than just that downtown area. I think that pretty much hits on the bullet points for Parkshill. Swan Lake has not started yet, but Nancy, Bill Liblick, Todd Gallo, and he said
Tommy Latitudo.
Latitudo, right, have said that they are interested in starting up that committee, so they will be formed. And I think we are still looking for committee members in the hamlet of Ferndale. Okay?
If anybody's interested in serving on that, Lynn Dow is here, and he will be working with that committee as well. So if you live in Ferndale and you're concerned about how you would like to see the map look and the charts look for your community, I'm there.
We really are striving to make this a community-driven, resident-driven exercise, okay?
Now I can do that. Sorry about that. No, just wait.
Let me start. I just wanted to, before we open up, whether we rescind the charts and the zoning changes that were made, or whether we keep them, as Dean said, we had a lot of work to do, because if the 87 code was perfect, it wouldn't have been motivated people to change it. It's a question of where we can go fastest with changes to again, promote economic growth. I wanted to start off the conversation tonight because the people that have been serving on the committees, they've been very much literate in the issues and everything, and it's a privilege for them to hear from them first about what they suggest, and then after we do that for a few minutes, then we'll open it up to the rest of the folks. So we're going to start with the zoning regs committee. Mike?
Go up there?
Sure. And then Tommy, you want to follow with the map? You want to read a little something about the map? Again, we're asking our people to keep it 3 to 5 minutes as well, okay? Introduce yourself.
I'll give you the hand if you want to walk. I'll let that have that. You want to just stay there?
Mike was the surveyor and he is
Because I want to be able to read off my script.
zoning regulations committee. He was going over the language.
If it isn't, we'll turn it on.
They've been focusing on
Okay.
summer camps and youth. So that's how we're identifying that around the community work. Got my gun, okay?
You hear me?
Yes.
Is it on?
It's on.
Oh, good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Woods. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Regulations Review Committee, whose members include, I put my glasses on, I'll be able to read it. Tom Edwards, Lynn Dow, Russell Reeds, John Nichols, John Van Etten, and Ann Hart. If I can get through this evening without having a Marco Rubio, we'll be doing fine. I think we can all agree that we can see orderly growth in residential housing, increased job opportunities, and an enlarged tax base. County of Sullivan has 10% unemployment rate with a 9% tax increase we just experienced. And the town of Liberty is 22% tax exempt. The cost to operate local government keeps rising, but the tax-based growth does not keep pace with these growing costs, and taxes keep going up. The town and the county need more growth. Unfortunately, the more I analyze the current zoning map and regulations, it appears that we have taken a step backwards in our efforts to encourage orderly growth and development. Let me cite a few examples. There are many summer camps in town, particularly on the Swan Lake Road and the Upper Ferndale Road. These areas are now zoned R1, which does not include summer camps as an allowable use. The camps are long-established facilities that do employ many local tradesmen and craftsmen seasonally. The camp owners have also expressed a desire to expand. One could conclude that the town of Liberty is not friendly to the summer camps. Two-family or duplex houses have long been a popular structure in many areas of the town. These houses have allowed elderly parents to live in a separate unit from their children. They have also provided housing for young people as they try to establish their own housing. And this style of house has provided owners with much needed income to defray costs. Two-family housing is now allowed only in the R1 and R2 zones. One could conclude that the town of Liberty is not friendly to the extended family unit. Prior to 2011, the town had a few resort hotel zones, primarily in the areas of the Stevensville Hotel, Paramount Hotel, and Grossinger's. This district has been completely eliminated. Hotels and motels are designated only in rural development zone where there are no public services. One could conclude that the town of Liberty is not friendly to the hotel and hospitality industry, which along with agriculture was the backbone to the history of our community. The town now has more properties that would be considered a non-conforming use than before 2011's change in zoning. Existing businesses have been removed from service commercial zones, and industrial development zones have been scaled back from where they would be most practical. In fact, the westerly part of Walnut Mountain Town Park, with frontage on Route 52, is zoned service commercial and in conflict with the activities of the town's parks and recreation programs. There are areas where one side of the road is a different zoning district than the other side of the road. This arrangement should be avoided if at all possible. In comparing the previous zoning district bulk use charts with the present, 12 land uses have been moved from permitted uses to a special use, and 27 land uses have been eliminated entirely. This is a shift throughout the charts from a less restrictive use to a more restrictive use. In developing the town's comprehensive plan in 2008, concern was voiced about the preservation of open space. In the present code, conservation subdivisions are required to have a minimum open space of 50% of original lot size, yet there appears to be no provision to acquire the easements or what agency will hold and administer the easements. In my view, Sullivan County in general, and the town of Liberty in particular, are about 50 years away from the concept of conservation easements. On the map before you are all of the vacant properties in the town of Liberty. The town has about 50,000 acres of land, of which 18,850 acres are vacant.
That's the green properties.
And we're getting to that. 38% of the town's acreage is vacant. There are 4,484 total parcels, of which 1,655 are vacant, 37%. For vacant parcels in area up to 5 acres, there are 939. From 5 to 10 acres, there are 346. And over 10 acres, there are 370 parcels. Every parcel in green on this map is over 10 acres. You can see there's a lot of green on this map. There are numerous other large parcels not considered to be vacant only because they have a storage barn or a shed on them. There is no shortage of open space in the town of Liberty. Let me repeat that. There's no shortage of open space in the town of Liberty.
Right. That's three to five.
Almost done.
You're over three, you're close to
I want to talk to the town board now.
Okay.
I would like to address the town board specifically, and not necessarily as a member of the zoning review committee, but rather as a resident land surveyor with 40 years of experience working with many different zoning codes in many towns. And as a former two-term town councilman in the 1980s, I was a member of the committee for 2 years, leading up to the adoption of the revised zoning ordinance in 1987. The measure of a well-working zoning ordinance is how much activity there is before the Zoning Board of Appeals. At that time, many applications before the ZBA, there were many applications before the ZBA seeking relief. It was the proper time to update the ordinance. In recent years, the ZBA has not been very busy, which reflects the changes that were made to eliminate the problems. If you want fewer and fewer of us to pay more and more of the tax burden, stay with the present code. Otherwise, this present code is flawed, it is regressive, it's too restrictive, and it's counterproductive. I strongly recommend that the town board repeal the present ordinance, map, and bulk regulations and return to the 1987 ordinance. It would be more practical to revise and update that code than to work backwards. I'm confident that if the Hamlet Committee and the Zoning Review Committee continue to meet and deliberate, we can present the town board with an ordinance and map that will make the town of Liberty resident-friendly, business-friendly, and environmentally friendly. Thank you.
Yeah, just give me a microphone for a second. Does it work? Or it says get it out. Well, I'm not used to speaking the last few years in front of a bunch of people, but my name is Tom Edwards. I'm an original zoning officer in town from January 1st, 1974, when it was initiated. I spent 6 years doing that, and then the next 12 years as councilman in town. So I've been 18 years, first 18 years with zoning in the town of Liberty. And we lived with it, we changed it in '87, Mike Woods was part of it, and the biggest problem we had was that the zoning wasn't consistent on both sides of the road. So we went physically by every page of the tax map with Tommy Martin, Mike and I, and we took care of every property on both sides of the road to get it consistent. Because that's where our problems were. And we changed that in '87. In '92, I left the town board and went on my way working. And it come November 2011, I was in to see Lori to get a hunting license, my grandson in Tennessee. And John Schmidt was there, and I told him I wanted to subdivide my lot in White Sulphur, an 1.5 acre lot in the water district. So he looks at the map, he says, "You can't subdivide that." I said, "I got an 1.5 acre in the water district." He says, "You're zoned agricultural." I said, "What?" So you need 10 acres. I need 10 acres in the water district in White Sulphur for a lot? So I go look at the map, and not only am I zoned agricultural, my neighbor is on the hill, and the lot below us is the White Sulphur water wells, and they're also agricultural. All around the water wells is all agricultural zoned. So that was where I started getting into this here with Charlie, and so then we got on the map, and then got going over it, and there were so many places where, up by Richie Herring's, there's 3 different R zones in 100 yards. One guy here's R1, one guy here's R2, and the guy across the road is RD. And as we keep going over this map, it's so many, like in 100 yards, there's 3 different zonings. And I really looked at the map that Parksville done on the committee, and that simplifies it wherever you are. I really like what you've done there. And I'll just leave it at that. And Mike, I think for us to try to take this map and go back would be far too much work. I think the town board should go back to '87, and then we'll take that and move ahead. Thank you.
Let's see, Russell, you wanted to speak?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My main concern, I would say, would be that presently you can't have an apartment in your home. So we have a tremendous problem with the taxes in the town. We're higher than the surrounding towns. And one way for a taxpayer, resident, to stay in your area and offset the taxes would be to have an apartment in your house, whether it be in your attic or your basement or whatever. Presently, the way things are, it's not possible. Only in a few small places can you do this. So what's happening is you're unable to stay in your home. If the taxes continue the way they are, without increasing our tax base, nobody's going to be able to afford to stay in their house. So that's one of my main concerns is the resident cannot afford to stay in their house due to One main reason is they can't have an apartment, which would allow them to stay. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I had a nice speech here all made up, but between Charlie and Gene and Russell and Mike, you covered most of my bases. So I'll just give you a few examples of some problems we've seen come across our table at the planning board. They're smaller ones, but not so much smaller to the people that it affected. One example for Swan Lake was we had an older lady and her husband come up to us, and they were very upset. They spent their life savings and took out a huge mortgage for their little store in Swan Lake. They were basically asking us for an apartment above their store for an employee to live in. We had to deny them because the current law, the new law, states that the only one who can stay in an apartment above a store, it has to be owner occupied. It has to be directly the owner himself, not an employee. So in that case, not having the employee be able to stay there, that will directly affect their business. Also in Swan Lake is the Stevensville Hotel is no longer zoned for a hotel. We've got this huge building there that's always been a hotel, and it's not in a hotel zone anymore. If you go to Ferndale, most of the Route 17 Ferndale corridor is IC now, where it used to be RD. If you don't mind, I'll use Ed Alley's for example. He has been a lifelong resident. He's had a business on Bloom Road since before I can remember. And the town should thank him for buying a house, an existing vacant house on Bloom Road, and he came before the planning board. He wanted to turn it into an antique store. He tried it, the business failed. So he now has a potential buyer to buy the house. He cannot sell the house because in the IC zone, residential housing is not allowed. Once he used it for a business, it cannot go back to a house. And he's stuck with a building he cannot sell. So that's a problem for Ferndale. If you go to White Sulphur, we had a developer come before us, spent probably $250,000 on engineering, surveying, and plans. He spent 5 or 6 years developing plans for Lake Marine Homes. There were 33 houses proposed for this development. Before he got his final approval, the zone changed to AC, which are 10-acre minimum lots. So where the town has the potential to get tax revenue for 33 homes, now that developer, the most homes he can put there are 7. So that's affecting the town tax base. We'll hit another hamlet. If you go to Parksville, I'll leave the Parksville Village alone because they have their own hamlet committee they're doing a fine job. But if you take Daytop in Parksville, Daytop filed for bankruptcy, and they're trying to sell the Parksville facility so they can put that money into the Swan Lake facility and keep those Sullivan County employees there or employed. They cannot sell. They do have potential buyers for the Parksville facility, and they cannot sell it because it's not zoned for camps. Even though there are probably 4 or 5 camps surrounding Daytop right now, and my fear is if they cannot sell it, they'll abandon the building, and eventually the town or the county will be stuck with a huge demolition bill. So I'm not going to go into any more depth on anything, but every hamlet has its problems with the current zoning, and it's too restrictive. I feel that there's nothing wrong with multiple use or mixed use zoning that allows more than one thing in a zone. Certainly the IC should be more than the IC. It's not Route 211 in Middletown yet, and hopefully that day would come. And if it does come, the town will still have the chance to change the zoning, but in the meantime, Mr. Alley's should certainly be able to have a house there. So that's all I have to say for right now, thank you.
Tom, anything? No? Okay, that's our zoning. One more, Charlie.
Good evening, my name is John Nichols, most of you know me. Again, these guys all step into everything I was going to say pretty much. I have a house in Parksville in rural development. And part of my plan going forward was to have space set aside on my property to build a duplex, to build a couple apartments similar to Albert Richmond's got a duplex or a fourplex. So then down the road when I retire, my kids move out, and I could have 2 apartments or 4 apartments there for working class families that could afford to live in our town, and I could personally afford to stay here. The way it is now, if I can't do that type of thing, when I retire, I'll be forced to leave the town because I will not be able to afford my taxes. I already have the land cleared, I have some of the underground utilities done, I have road access is done. Basically, it's shovel ready. It's shovel ready for nothing because I can't do it now with the new zoning. On another topic, they touched on the hotels. A little history lesson, 1811, 1,000 acres was purchased by a fellow by the name of William Nichols. He was 6 generations before me, and he bought 1,000 acres, which became the Nichols House, a hotel. Back then they called it a boarding house. Now it's a hotel. It was sold in 1911 to Grossinger's. They built, as you all know, they're one of the biggest resorts going. They probably have the biggest building in the town of Liberty. I don't know of any of them bigger. 8 stories, the Jenny G. The way it's zoned now is R1. They've got rid of the hotel zone. So if any of you folks want to buy it, you can build a single family residence out of the Jenny G. That's a great house, 8 stories. Just a little, I was down at the county today for another topic, so I decided to look up the Grossinger property. 2007 through 11, they paid the taxes on that property. In 2011, they paid, between town and school, $261,533. And that was every year prior they paid. Since the zoning, and I'm not saying that they picked the zoning to stop paying their taxes, but they have not paid their taxes since the zoning changed, because that building basically might as well be torn down, and you can build, you can do a PUD there, which is a planned unit development, which would go through years and years of approvals, years and years of hope, a lot of hurdles, and in my own opinion, nobody in their right mind is going to buy that property in hopes that they can get a PUD approved. I'm with a lot of other people in this room. In our group that we do, we've peeled back the onion, trying to do a couple of problems that the town board's asked us to look at. We peel back the onion, and every time we peel a layer, we hit another roadblock. I'm fully for going back to the 87 zoning change, or the 87 zoning maps, and it'd be so much easier to start there and address the problems going forward. Thank you.
I just want to bear with us a few more minutes because we have some of the Hamlet committees that would like to report. Wes, would you have anything to report? Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. We got one more zoning regs committee. Ann, Art, you got a microphone.
Again, most of my colleagues on this committee have hit a lot of the high spots of the things that we have discussed over the last several, 6, 7 months, whatever they are. I wrote a letter for the town board to consider that as it's rather long, and there are a lot of people here tonight, hopefully they'd like to speak. But I'd like to say that I'm in support of moving forward using the 2000 zoning changes as a base. We've obviously found out, everybody in town, I mean, the woman in Swan Lake who came to the planning board that night and wanted to have that model, that was a wonderful model. I think we have to reconsider mixed use in all these districts. I think it's a way to make a healthy community, and by taking all those mixed uses out was not good. But that doesn't mean rolling the zoning back. I think we also have to consider that between 1987 and 2011, there were 24 years of not very much development in this town. One of the reasons might very well have been the fact that in the IC zone, just about everything was allowed. Now, if I wanted to open a dry cleaning factory, say in the IC, would I want to open it next to a bunch of single-family houses? No, I'd be worried about spending my money investing in a plant when I might have neighbors, complaining all the time. I think we know what the problems are. I think we can take those problems, take a hard look at them, and make those changes. I think to go back 24 years now, 25 years, is just a waste of time and probably more money. So I just say we keep going forward, we stop hoping about the past, and we look to the future. Thanks.
Don't think twice until anybody once. Really quick.
Can you say that we have a shovel-ready industrial development site in Ferndale, and there's 18 lots there? Good, if Charlie doesn't want me to talk, I won't talk, but someone should mention it, because they should go to that site before they go to other places on Old 17, and it's gonna be a long time before anyone's going to buy a house that's vacant for an industrial business when we have shovel-ready sites available.
Anybody else from the zoning regs committee? And we'll go to the Hamlet committee.
My name is Wes Illing. I'm an active member on the Parksville Priorities Committee for the last, well, since it first started 6-7 years ago, I guess. Anyway, I would like to reiterate the purpose of zoning is to basically enable a vision that the community has for what they want, where they want to see their community 5 years from now and 50 or 100 years from now. But the other element of zoning, which is really important, is that zoning needs to ensure the financial survivability or the survival. It has to make sure that the community can be financially sustainable. And I think if you look at the impact of the zoning that we've had in the town of Liberty over the last 50 years, the answer is pretty obvious that it's not. The zoning that we had for the last 50 years has not given us a financially sustainable community. Look at our tax rate. It's really high. Are we attracting any developers? No. Is it unfolding like we want? No. There's a lot of people that want to preserve the open space, and I think that's really important. But I think there's a marriage between the people that want to preserve the open space and also achieving some financial stability for the community and working towards a plan that can start to reduce our increasing taxes and reverse that trend that's been happening for the last 50 years. I think the new plan has a lot of merit. I think the old plan has a lot of merit. I don't think either map is any good. I think we need to make an entirely new map that really addresses the financial sustainability of our community while preserving the open spaces that a lot of people want to preserve. And what that means then is, if we want our taxes to go down, we have to start planning our community in such a way that we can take advantage of developing in areas that doesn't increase our tax revenue requirements. Well, we are blessed with a lot of state roads, federal roads, and county roads in our township that do not have any significant impact on the budget for the town highway department, which is 2/3 of our property tax bill. So whatever plan we put together should really be focusing on encouraging development along those transportation corridors so that we can get development for practically free. We get all that additional revenue and we don't have to incur a lot of additional cost. So certainly we need to integrate that with the plan, and the new plan did not really address that very well. And the old plan didn't really address trying to preserve the open spaces very well because it enabled the growth of all these little 5-acre parcels all over the town, and now we've got to maintain roads to go to all those 5-acre lots, and it's very expensive to do that. So regarding the two maps, I really think we need to start with a new map, and the new map should have our roads on it. It should have topography to show us what our natural resource limitations and are for the various areas we want to help us do. So we want to they'll tell us what our watersheds are and watershed limitations, our lakes and streams and whatnot. And it should have the water and sewer districts on it to see if we want to encourage development in certain areas more cost effectively than in other areas. And the other thing that we need to embrace that we did not embrace in either of the previous plans was that we have 4 hamlets that the town has control over. The town doesn't control the Village of Liberty, but we have 4 other hamlets: White Sulphur, Swan Lake, Parksville, and Ferndale. And each hamlet is unique. Parksville has very unique geographical and top, resources that it has. It's got these mountains. It's a little tiny hamlet. There's not a lot of room to do anything. And so the zoning requirements for Parksville are very different than the zoning requirements for White Sulphur, which is a linear hamlet. Swan Lake, on the other hand, has that big lake. And any zoning we would do for Swan Lake would be very different again. And Ferndale, well, Ferndale's become a fast food haven. And a lot of restaurants in Ferndale. Certainly we wouldn't want to enable fast food restaurants to start off in Parksville because it could put Ferndale out of business. So we have to have zoning that's unique to each of the 4 hamlets and custom tailored around the needs of that hamlet to encourage growth for that hamlet that's sustainable and is where that community envisions where it wants to be 50 years from today. The last thing I want to talk about is the Parksville Priority Committee, where we're at and where we're going. We're pretty much done with what we feel we want for the zoning for the hamlet, and we're working on the definitions right now because definitions is one of the biggest issues that the planning boards always struggle with, a failure to make good definitions for all the things you address in your code. So now we're looking at the areas outside of the hamlet, which are the new AC zones or the old RD zones. Parksville is a little different than the other areas, the other hamlets and the other areas in the town of Liberty, because in the Parksville area, and we've been talking about this at the PPC meetings, the Parksville Priorities Committee meetings, we're in the watershed for Livingston Manor. And that means any development that occurs in that watershed can have a negative impact on the flooding conditions in Livingston Manor. And that's why topography is so important. Because anything we do, the last thing we want to do is have a negative impact and worsen the flooding conditions in Livingston Manor. And topography that can impact that isn't just Parksville and the area up the Cooley Road, it's also on the other side of the I-86. And if you don't address that in your zoning law, somebody, if they wanted to, could overturn your zoning code under secret. Because you're required under secret to address issues like that. And you can't do zoning that's going to just screw up another community because you don't care about them, because you only care about yourself. So we've been trying to figure out a way to create a win-win situation for Livingston Manor and the landowners in that watershed. And we're still going back and forth on different ideas to enable stuff like that. But I think there can be a win-win solution for everybody. It just means sitting down and getting out of the camp that you're in and sitting down as just a regular old Joe and moving towards where we should go logically. And the last thing I want to say, and we go over this all the time, I repeat this many times at the PPC meetings, zoning is not about any individual. I don't care a hoot about any individual or his personal problems. Zoning is about community. Zoning is about everybody. And anytime the interests of an individual come into play regarding zoning, it's time for that person to just shut down or leave, because that's not what you want to have in your zoning meetings. You need to talk about where the community needs to go, not how can individuals benefit by this new zoning change. All that does is create corruption and political crap. You've got to stay focused on the overall good of the community in terms of getting our costs down, getting our taxes down, and getting into a financially sustainable position. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Wes.
You're welcome, Charlie.
White Sulphur Springs, any comments?
Well, yeah, I'll be real short to make up a little time here. When you guys gave us this task, we were all very excited and very pleased. that you're reaching out to your communities, and we're grateful for that still. Then we started looking into it and said, oh boy, we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have since stopped, since all these problems have come about, and so-called two sides of the fence. I urge the town board to make this decision, make it as quick as you can, get the map that we're going to start with, and then have these committees work from that map, get the problem areas of that back to you that we understand are problem areas from our community, and bring it back to you. But that's what I urge you to do, is get the map set, which one we're going with, and let's go forward with it. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the privilege class that wanted to, I'm not privileged yet, my committees. And so we're opening it up to the public. I've been flashing up on the board some of the rules of engagement for tonight, and hope you've read them. Our goal is 9 o'clock. We're trying to keep comments to 3 to 5 minutes. We've been very good up to this point. I said we'd try to get out by 9 o'clock, so we've got a whole hour for your comments, so I think that we're in good shape. And we wanted to...
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. My name's Mike Edwards. I live in Swan Lake. First of all, I see absolutely no logic in going backwards in time, doing away with all the good work that was done for the comprehensive plan, to go back to a situation which people admittedly feel was unsatisfactory in the first place. There's no logic in that plan at all. If there are problems with the current plan, which there obviously seem to be, then let's fix them within the framework of what we've got, which builds on the good work that was done and takes it forward. That surely is the logical way. Secondly, I'm very worried that the good work of the comprehensive plan in making inappropriate development more difficult will be rolled back. That seems to be the subtext of a lot of the comments that I'm hearing. That's bad for the tax base, because a lot of inappropriate development is tax exempt, either because it's tax exempt formally or because it gets IDA rebates and so on. It's bad because no one with very large amounts of money is going to come and invest here unless they can find a beautiful area to invest in. If you're going to come and invest millions of dollars in property or whatever, and then you're going to wake up and find a scrapyard on your doorstep or a summer camp or some other inappropriate development, you're not going to invest. So both from a property tax point of view and the point of view of long-term economic development, whatever we do, please let's be very careful about rolling back those boundaries, which will make it easy for people to do the wrong thing in the wrong place.
I've got Swan Lake all lined up here, so we'll just do a little row right through here.
Hi, I'm Bill Liblick. I'm speaking tonight. I'm president of the Presidential Estates Homeowners Association. We have 114 homes. We're taxpayers. And that, I think everybody in this room is concerned about one thing. We live here, we pay our taxes here. We want economic development here, but we want a tax base here. And we're very concerned about tax-exempt properties. And that's the word that no one is talking about. We have a second phase of presidential that could be developed. We've not put it out in the market. When you look at all of the homes in foreclosure in Sullivan County, when you look at all the people on public assistance in Sullivan County, you look at the old Sullivans, we can't even get a movie theater there. We drive in the hamlets, we see a change there, dramatic change there. We're concerned about the Stevensville property, that now the tax abatements are up. There's talk about a homeless shelter trying to go there, displaced people coming there, senior citizens, veterans housing. We don't know what's coming there. I think we all want growth. When these maps were designed, the new ones and the old ones, I don't think the intent was for a home that someone wants to build a few homes there and apartments there and sell some property. But we also have to be concerned about development and the type of development we're talking about. Do we want tax-paying development to come here or non-tax-paying development to come here? And it's not a statement that we're saying you're being prejudiced or we're talking about economics here. We're talking about the amount of property in Sullivan County that's tax exempt. And that's a serious problem. We have the old Green Tree Trailer Park on 55? And it's empty. You have these luxurious homes there. And that was planned. And then we go into Swan Lake. And we look at the homes that were planned there, that were approved on the town maps here, by the planning board, the zoning board, by the town board, went through the sewer district, went through everything. None of those homes were built because we're not marketing Sullivan County. Everyone is sitting and we're complaining about Sullivan County and we're saying, what about it? But where are we taking that extra step in this county, and not just Liberty, of saying, let's go forward? We talk about gaming coming here. We talk about water parks coming here. How many times did we hear water parks coming to Grossinger's? How many times did why aren't we marketing Grossinger's for gaming? Why aren't we talking about if gaming is coming into Sullivan County and by the Concord area, why aren't we talking about building homes for the workers that are going to have to come here? The 2,000 jobs, 2,000 people are going to live somewhere. So are these people going to come from Ulster County to work here, Orange County to come here, from Pennsylvania to work here, or Delaware County? Or let's get them here, and let's find a way to change these maps. To be supportive of people who want to grow on their land and to invite developers to come here and say, you know, we have one thing no one is talking about. We go from Harris all the way up to Parksville, and we have 17, which is going to be an interstate. Why aren't we talking development right now of that entire corridor? We have one person who developed there, an animal hospital, and what other development have we really seen there? So let's take everything out of Thompson, start bringing some stuff into Liberty, and start talking about our tax base and people who are going to come here, live here, and economically develop here and pay taxes here.
And now that you're on the Parksville Hamlet Committee, you know, you'll have actual input and we can hold your feet to the fire.
Hi, I'm Iris Foreman. I'm from Swan Lake as well. I hate when I agree with this guy.
So do most of the people in this room.
Actually, from your own numbers, such as 20% of the land here is off the tax rolls. Add to that another approximately 18% of the people in Sullivan County, and I'm sure a great number in Liberty and Swan Lake, are living in poverty. There's about 10% unemployment. And 38% of your land is vacant. That tells me that somewhere in the order of 86% of the land here is tax-free. In other words, you're not getting taxes on this land. It seems to me that the cart is being put in front of the horse. Somebody started off saying that this new tax, or your new zoning map, took in mind the building of single-family homes and then jobs. The fact of the matter is, nobody's going to build a home if they don't have a job to support it. So I would like to see some thought. Firstly, I would like to see this current iteration, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. I know all the work that went into it. Scrapped. I'm sorry to say that. Because the emphasis should not be on land, but rather on the marketing, as Mr. Lieblich just said, on the marketing of this beautiful land that we have here. It's not beautiful now. It looks devastated. It looks terrible. We know what it used to be hasn't been that way for a very, very long time. What I would like to see is a cohesive plan of what kinds of businesses you feel would be appropriate for this area, and then go out and market it. Go out and market it. Then develop a zoning plan to accommodate not only the businesses, but the people working there and the houses they'll live in. And then you can have a more accurate idea of your tax base. But in the meantime, to tax taxpayers, such as myself, more to make up with way more than half of the people who are not paying taxes is ridiculous. Thank you.
I got a little tunnel vision for this. I was thinking I'd go around in quadrants, but so we're pretty much done over here. You like to speak? Then we'll do that quadrant and then back to that quadrant. We'll try and do it in a minute. Thank you.
Hi, I'll keep this brief. My name is Todd Gallo. I represent my family's investment into Swan Lake, Stevensville. I'll make it quick. We're talking about marketing. The last time I was here when I was trying to fight this zoning change in 2010, I talked to Heinrich and I said, how am I going to bring a Starwoods Resorts to my property and have them develop our place? So I haven't had a chance to bring Starwoods, but I've had a chance in the last several months to bring 2 very major developers out of the city and come and look at the property, to build boutique, beautiful hotel there, and to renovate the property again. The first one that came and looked at it, it was between my property and another one, and they decided to go to the other property. This current one, which was a week ago, another major developer out of the city with boutique hotels, decided again to go elsewhere. And the main reason what these guys ask when they come and talk to me is, the first question they ask is, what's with the zoning? You're a non-conforming, pre-existing structures, a resort hotel in a residential town. So marketing, I cannot market my place. I cannot market our investment, our hotel as is, because we are in an R1 zone. And my family has been committed here for 23 years. We've been a member of this community for 23 years. We've invested $30 million into this area alone. So, if we're talking about marketing and bringing everything back, someone once mentioned to me that we are, we're all in this boat trying to oar it out. I agree with that, but please, as a member of this community, as a person in that boat, much like all of you here, we need to put the plug back in so that we can, navigate to a safer harbor, safer shore. We cannot go on like this. We have to invite any type of development now rather than, shun them away, which I think we unfortunately are doing. So, thank you so much.
So we'll go to this quadrant up here.
I'm Fritz Mayer. I live on Upper Ferndale Road. First, I want to start off by reminding you guys down there that 3 of you on the board voted for these changes in 2011. I'm sure you were thinking very carefully at the time about what you were doing. I think it's a really bad idea to go backwards. There were certainly some good things that were done in this zoning. I think you could go on right from where you are and work just as quickly as if you went backwards 25 years. It would not affect my street, by the way. We've been zoned residential since 1987. I want to address one thing that Mr. Wood said. He said camps are not welcome on Upper Ferndale Road. Our camp has received 22 permits to expand in the last decade. I think they're very welcome on our road. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like let's make a deal or whatever that was. All right, anybody in this quadrant? Window 1 or door number 3?
Hi, I'm Amy Hanwell from the Parksville Priority Committee. I just wanted to thank Wes for speaking tonight, to give a shout out to everybody to go on to the website. It's parksvilleny.org. All of our ideas are out there, our zoning plans are out there, our marketing strategies are out there, who we have in our communities out there. You're welcome to participate. We have meetings the first Monday of every month. We're usually 99.9% of the time at Rolling River Cafe at 7 p.m. And if we're not there, there's a note on the door, but I don't know the last time there was a note. Okay, so you're welcome to come out, listen to us, come see, hear what we have to say. We always have our big maps out. Wes has done an incredible job helping us out in Parksville, so I have to thank him for reaching out.
There's usually a nice cup of coffee and a Danish too. All right, with this quadrant here.
My name is Sean Zigman. I grew up here, went to Liberty High School, the elementary school, Sullivan County Community College for my first couple of years of college, moved away, and came back 20 years later at the end of 2010 to help my elderly mother out and start a farm on our 1 acre parcel. And since bought my neighbor's land, so I have 2.5 acres. And at the time was told by the town that what I would do was going to be acceptable, and then found out later that that was not true and had to go to the town for a special use permit. Money that I wasn't planning on, time and energy that I wasn't planning on, and found at that time, at the beginning of 2011, that these zoning changes did go through, and had no idea that it was even going on. I don't read the Sullivan County Democrat, so I wasn't aware of the public notices. I think the changes that I have a problem with are not necessarily the map so much as the district intent definitions, and the fact that they are much more restrictive now than they were prior. And it's on both sides of the fence. I think a lot of people are having problems with the intention of what you can do in your zone, whatever that zone may be. And I think that's mostly the problem here. It's not necessarily the map and where things are laid out on the map, but it's what you can do within your definition of your zone. And I face that directly, being what's considered rural development and what I see as a highly agricultural area in White Sulphur Springs. In fact, the land that I bought last year, prior, the owner of that property, her grandparents farmed most of White Sulphur Springs 70 to 100 years ago. Her family were farmers, and she was telling me stories of the farmland and how it's been changed over the years into mostly a residential community, which makes sense for the area that we're in. I'll also agree with the gentleman who stated that the map is and the intents are not necessarily looking at all of the variables in our area, what resources we have, what businesses already exist, where they exist, the type of business, and also the type of either structure on that property or the property itself, and what it abuts, what resources it has on it, and also the intention of the community members themselves. Some of you may think I'm crazy for trying to establish a farm on an acre, but it's the future. People are concerned about their food. They're concerned about where it's coming from. They want to grow it themselves. That was my intention. Not only to feed myself better and my family, but my community members. And I was met with a lot of negativity, and I've since turned a lot of that into positivity, which is nice, but I think there are a lot of really good, well-intentioned people in our town, in our community, in our county, and in our state. And we need to start realizing we're not just living here in the present, that we have to start thinking about the future. There are other things that we should be considering when we develop something like this. What do we have? What did we have? What do we want? And specifically, the community at large, as you mentioned. Not just what do I want, but what else is going on in the area. And I think sticking with what we have and tweaking it, I think is the best path forward. Going backwards doesn't make sense. We're eliminating a lot of hard work from a lot of good people. I think the map is one thing, the intent is another, and community involvement is certainly the most important aspect of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put Maurice out of a job. He volunteered for that job, and then I took it. So.
I need to lose weight.
Yes. So we're right down here to Dan.
Usually I don't need a microphone, but as you can hear, I've got touch laryngitis. I'm in a unique position because I look around this room. I think I know most of the people in this room for as long as I know the people in this room. And one thing that is terribly disturbing is I see one side against another, the top against the bottom, the Orthodox against the non, the business not. I see Mr. Gallo, 23 years, how many $1 million? Mayor Frischman, Campaguda. I've worked for him for 30 years, so is the Ertzes, and I can name 20 other contractors he keeps in business. I also know that he's a silent contributor to everything that's in this community. 11 years ago, I was burnt to death, dying. He came to the rescue of my family. He didn't have to. He's a part of this community, And what we're forgetting, Wesley, is this is still small town America, and individuals do mean something very important. That's what we're all about. The Nichols is 200 years. Why can't he remain here? And I hear we did a lot of hard work. Well, you can take a sledgehammer outside and beat a rock for 20 hours, and that's a lot of hard work, and you still got a pile of rocks. I'm not saying they didn't work hard, they didn't work diligently, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We move on, that's what we do. Public officials and public committees, they make mistakes all the time. That's why officials get elected, unelected, we move on, new committees. But I know going, as a member of a planning board, attending planning board meetings, going to other communities, seeing other business people, looking around this room, seeing the people that go out to entice other companies to come to this community. And yes, there's a lot of people in this room, for no money, go out and entice industry, business people, developers to come here. Do we make mistakes along the way? We do. But one thing that we hear from every single one of those persons, with no exception, is that Liberty is unfriendly to developers, Liberty is unfriendly to development, Liberty is unfriendly to business. We have to do everything 3 or 4 times to get it right, and we're not. You know, the zoning is only one part of it, but it's hindering us. And if it means starting from zero and moving forward, that's what we have to do. But the longer we procrastinate on this issue, we're going to drive people away. Example, the Weisman project is 1.5 years in the making. If the man didn't feel, if his company didn't feel that that was an excellent spot, he'd have been gone. He's complied with everything that anyone has wanted, and we still can't get him here. You know, we need to move forward with this, and if it takes starting from zero, let's go back to zero and move forward. Thank you.
You got it. We've answered all your questions.
Can I just say that?
Cora?
Thank you. My name is Cora Edwards, and as a legislator for a year now, I'm getting my feet wet, and I'm really learning a lot. One of the things that was shocking to me to learn was that when we had a gentleman by the name of Frank Morrow come from the Fiscal Policy Institute and did a firehouse forum in Hurleyville, he couldn't believe that the way that Sullivan County's income was 56 million in property taxes and 34 million in sales tax. He said every other county in New York State, it's the inverse. All other counties in New York State get their primary source of revenue from sales tax, not property tax. So I'd like to, a lot of people made a lot of good points tonight, and I think that one of the things that I would like to be able to do as a result of being a legislator is to buy my clothes and shoes in Sullivan County and let that sales tax stay in the county. And I think that zoning has a very big part of it, as Wes said. There's a financial overlay that comes to it. The other point I'd like to make, I think a lot of us, how many here would like to be able to buy clothes and shoes in Sullivan County? Okay, so we're telling you, as taxpayers, as residents, as officials, these are the kinds of things that we would spend our money on. This is a zoning issue. And what are we doing to attract retail outlets here? We have the old Sullivans, and they haven't, really filled their stores with things that, would keep us in the county to buy. So the other thing is, with regards to that, I know there are a lot of local stores that do sell clothing items, but it's a simple thing. It's not something that requires economic development consultants coming from who knows where and charging how much to tell you, what time it is on your own watch. The second point I'd like to make is with regards to the planned unit development. My understanding is that that is a floating overlay, and that it could be done on the Stevensville, it could be done at the Grossingers, and that planned unit development, because it's R1, doesn't mean that a hotel can't be built there. So why is there this misconception with 2 boutique hoteliers not knowing that a planned unit development would allow for that to happen. I believe that planned unit development was instigated in the 1980s, and there was a lot of money spent on creating, all of the requirements for that. So how come we're not marketing that for those properties that could use it? That's my question.
Who's got the answer?
They cannot finance a non-conforming, pre-existing lot through the banks. Banks will not listen to that. Moreover, when they have these scouts, I can talk, I think people can hear me. When they have these scouts come around and look at these potential places to develop, they cannot go to the people above them or to their R&D boards and say, we're gonna purchase this hotel for development because it's non-conforming. It's a non-conforming hotel in a residential zone. So it doesn't make the scratch test. Once they hear that, they turn away and they go somewhere else.
So you weren't able to.
I don't want to be back and
Oh,
forth
I
if
just-
I can help it, make Chris me and.
I just don't understand how, if it's been a hotel this whole time, why.
I'm not a
it wasn't
development
granted.
expert, so I don't know. Anybody help me out with that one? I know the PUD requires an awful lot of expensive studies, and to set it all up, it requires actually a town board approval. It's not even something that the zoning board can approve. Walter?
I mean, I can take a shot on answering the question if you want, but I mean,
Walter Gugliano's our.
I'm gonna start out by saying I don't own a square inch of land in the town of Liberty, so I don't know that I'm really somebody that should have a right to say anything in a meeting like this, and I'm glad to see you have a lot of landowners here.
Well, we want to hear you.
Well, okay. Cora, the answer to the question is you have to look at what the other opportunities are. So if you go around the town of Liberty and you go to the town of Thompson, they have a very significant amount of land area that's zoned for hotels as a specially permitted use. You go to the planning board with a site plan, they approve the site plan, you're done. You go to the town of Wawarsing, same thing. You go to the town of Bethel, the same thing. You go to the town of Rockland, the same thing. You go to the town of Neversink, even though it's a very small area in the town of Neversink where it's allowed, the same thing. When you come to Liberty, you're faced with this very difficult process of creating a PUD district, which means you go to the planning board to get a conceptual approval. Then you go to the town board for the town board to drop the overlay zone out of the sky on your property. Then you go back to the planning board for the planning board to review and approve a site plan. You got to look at what we have here and compare it to what all the surrounding communities have. You have to know what your competition is. And the competition is much better than Liberty in terms of the facility of those zoning laws to allow the development of tourism destinations. So in my opinion, the folks at the Stevensville are in a very tough spot. And in my opinion, having a PUD zone is nice to have, so that when all of the other property that's in all of our surrounding towns, where you don't have to go through all of that rigmarole, is all gone, then maybe Todd Gallo will have some success.
Well, I guess the point is more like, if 2 boutique hotels were turned away, then what is it that needs to be done to attract them?
Make it a special zone. Make it a special zone.
Good God. All right, Gary?
I think if you could put up that first goal that you had from the comprehensive plan, just to bring it back to full circle, that I think after hearing everybody speak, that the goal, the question is, what's it going to take to attain this goal? And the question of whether we want to go back to the old map or the new map, I think that there are merits of both maps. And if you can take, which way do you have to do it that will take the least amount of time and get the best job done? But if you have to go back to the old 1987 map and tweak it to be able to incorporate the good things of both maps, or if you can stay with the new map and incorporate the good things of both maps, that seems to be the compromise that would work. There are some ridiculous things on both maps. I mean, to have Grossinger's or the Stevensville not be a hotel zoned, it's absolutely ridiculous. To not have the I-86 corridor and not have industrial development along the corridor,
Well, the one map had the completely industrial, and the other map has no industrial. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So at this point, the town board, or whoever the powers that be that are gonna make these decisions, what's it gonna take to attain this goal? To take both maps, from what everybody has said, and put them together. The good things of both things that will attain our goal of bringing economic development and balancing the environmental beauty that we have here in Liberty.
And I think that's a decision that the board's going to have to make, whether the old plan would be a quicker plan to fix or the new plan is a quicker plan to fix, because that's what we need to do. We need to be able to be friendly tomorrow. So whatever we do, we have to set a timeline that this process is going to be over in a year, and we're going to have it all. And we can't go on for months and months and months discussing this stuff over and over again. We've got to get there. And is the old map going to get us a better friendly plan for now to fix, or does the new one give us a better friendly plan? And if the old one gives us a better plan, we have to go with that. So, because that's the quicker one. But in either case, we've got a year framework or 18 months to get it right. I think we've got to get
Why not make it 6 months, Charlie? Why a year? Why a year? We got technology. We don't need a year. You guys.
You haven't been to my meetings yet. You know? I've been doing this for a year.
6 months.
6 months.
Come on.
A year. I'm breaking down here.
I don't think I need that. Thanks, Maurice. I've been doing that. Charlie, when you say a year, I understand that certain things may take a year to get through. However, if the person, if Ed Ellis needs to sell his house, or if Todd finds somebody who is interested in a hotel, can these be things that are done quickly rather than going through the whole year's process, rather than waiting for the hotel to be zoned back, or Ed be able to sell his house, or does it have to?
But what my understanding is, and I'm the newbie, that's called spot zoning. If we were to zone him, resort hotel tomorrow so he can market his property, that's something that goes against the whole concept of zoning and the philosophy.
Then I think we need to move quickly.
I'm sorry, whoa. I know we're getting going here. We're going to keep it one at a time.
I think we need to move more quickly. I mean, we can't
we
wait a year to do some of these things.
We can't take specific incidences and straighten them out one at a time.
No, I understand.
Charlie, I wanted to go back to Glenn's idea about the individual not having zoning around that person, because then that creates a problem. I think what happens is an individual is affected, which then brings out the problem to the community. So, yes, there was a lot of work done on the new zoning. You don't want to take away, because obviously the idea is to bring stuff to Liberty. So I'm 31. I decided to come back. I have a good job here. That's the only thing that's keeping me here. If I couldn't have the job I have, I wouldn't be able to afford to be here. Charlie, we've talked numerous times how many kids in my graduation class are here. Not many. My thing is, I think the 87 plan, if you were to go back and start with that, because you have 25 years of building off of that specific zoning plan. You take your ideas from your 2011, you feed off of that, go back to the original. I understand you're going backwards, but sometimes to go ahead, you have to take a step back. Use that 87 plan as your base. You have 25 years behind it, as opposed to 1 year of no real building. Not saying it's the zoning's fault, but you don't have any development here that's visual on 1 year. Use 87, go forward, use the work done by the committee on the 11 to keep going forward.
Thank you. I just want to make a statement about what... I just want to make a general statement, but it came from the comment that White Sulphur had made that the White Sulphur Committee, we need, regardless of what happens tonight, that shouldn't slow down any of the committees from doing what they're doing, because the map that winds up at the end is going to take the input from the hamlets and go on that map. So if we go back to the old map, or whether we stay with the new map, it shouldn't hold anybody up like Parksville, from making suggestions of how we want that map to look, or from any member of the community to identify problems and let us know what those are. I mean, we're wrestling with a lot of things because we know what our goal is, but it's so hard to make the paper respond to what you really want to say and what you want to do. So that's a problem, and that's what takes so long with the language. You know, you say, did you really mean that when you said that? You know, you write something down and you look at it tomorrow and you say, whoa, that's not what I meant, you know, and that's what happens with, that's what happens with the code. Everybody first time before I start calling back to people. Well, there's somebody that hasn't spoken yet.
Anna Barbanti, if you go back to the old map, then that leaves Stevensville is in, that they're in a hotel zone.
That's right.
And why not?
But that's not spot.
And then feed off it. And Alley's was spot zone to begin with because it's all housing around there, and he is the only one that is in a commercial.
Again, you got
They're
to.
all houses.
What Brian was saying, though, we can't keep fixing our zoning for individual people that run into
No,
individual
but if you
problems.
go back
it
to
just
the
so
old
happens
map
that
and
the
start
old
working
zoning
with
would
it.
solve Eddie's problem, and it would solve.
But if you go to the old map, then you start and then you take from the good from this and add it on that again.
Okay, first timers.
First meeting I ever attended. I'm into national stuff, not local stuff, and my neighbor encouraged me to come, and I get wound up too easy, which is why I don't come and aggravate myself. But so much of what so many people said about the Daytop, about the gentleman with the antique store wanting a resident, this poor guy with the Stevensville, the Daytop, Grossinger's, duh. What Mr. Grigliano said, what Wes Illing said. I mean, those two guys, I'd take it and run with it and just start from there. I mean, it's just common sense, most everything I'm hearing. Why can't you help him out? Why can't you specifically help the guy out here with the Stevensville or the Daytop so we're not paying to tear it down? Isn't it just common sense? Why can't you help him specifically? What else are we going to do with it? Or the Daytop?
Let Judy
Who's got the
answer.
answer
Judy, you
for
can
the
answer.
spot zone?
You have to go to the old map.
Against the law. Against the law, that's what. Hold that, whoa.
This is a member of your community who spent $30 million in your community. You're turning your back on him? I'd kiss his butt and do everything I could to help him. I mean, come on, it's just common sense.
I tried before.
I don't know the guy, but geez.
All right, now let's slow down.
Judy's got an answer.
Judy, yeah, it's a cheat.
It just seems to me, I think that there's great things about the 2011 map, but the quick way to do this would be to go to the 87 map. I don't think that would take a year and a half, and over that period of time, whether it's a year and a half, take the good from the 2011 map and improve on the 87 map. And if we went back, then some of the Stevensville could get sold, then Mr. Alley's could sell his house, and all the things, it's not spot zoning, it's just allowing people to do what they need to do in the quickest manner fashion, and then take all the work that was done for the 2011 map and incorporate it, the good stuff, into the older map. That makes sense to me.
Hold on one second. You're a second timer. Any other first timers? You're a first timer? Okay.
Whatever we decide to do, whatever you guys decide to do, one thing that's for sure, my father-in-law said back in '87 or whenever they went through every single road, I think that needs to be done over, because I don't think you want to have a pig farm about 200 yards from the swamp in White Sulphur to the water wells, because I don't think that's legal. I think you'd be right now, that is legal to do that. And that needs to be changed. Now, that's an individual place. I think you live right next door, right?
Yes.
Sorry, I haven't mowed in a while. But you got to go through all those places again because things have changed. And each side of the street should be whatever each side of the street is. You can't have homes on this side of the street and then industrial stuff over there, whatever. It's got to be the same on each side of the street. Who's going to buy a house there? I mean, I can't believe that was done to begin with. Didn't anybody look at that? There's a water well there, and everything goes like this in White Sulphur, and it's zoned so you can put in pesticides, hogs, whatever you want to do. Who was doing that? And who was thinking about that? People from White Sulphur? Or maybe, I don't know.
I got a first timer here and then you, okay?
I just want to say, if I was a judge and I heard of Stevensville, I would say he's grandfathered. He should be zoned hotel. I can't understand it, that he would be.
Hasn't been used in a year.
What?
Well, no, back and forth,
So what?
No, I'm just
I
telling
don't
it's vacant.
Yeah.
It's not grandfathered because it's
Well, no, he's
vacant.
not, he's still non-conforming use. He can
Yeah,
continue as a
yeah,
hotel.
yes.
As a hotel. He can
He
continue to
owns
sell it as a hotel, but they can't get an investment, they're telling me. Nobody's going to invest in a property that's non-conforming as a hotel. That's what they're telling me. Lydia.
When he mentioned of the Stevensville, he said that people didn't want to, the investors didn't want to invest in a hotel because of the residents. Even if it's a hotel zoning again, it's still gonna be the residents. I mean, the residential housing is still there. So, isn't he still gonna have the same problem?
No. He wasn't saying residence, he was saying residential.
He said that there's people living right next to him. There's a lot of residents.
Different. No. Okay, thanks. First timers? No, you're a second timer? Sure. They're the first timer. I got this, I'm working my way down, he just raises his hand, then we'll come down to the.
Good evening, Malik Kabadi, I'm a resident of the Village of Liberty, and I thought I was not gonna speak, but the gentleman back there, the young man, really motivated me to say something. And to my friend Carla, I just want to say, I really would like to buy my clothes and my shoes in the town of Liberty, not necessarily just the town, Sullivan County, just the town of Liberty at least. I think it will make it a lot easier for the board to where, a starting point. If we put a goal to look at our kids, that these generations coming up, and referring to what he said, and I would ask myself the question, the board will ask themselves the question and say, what do we need to do to make sure when our kids leave Sullivan County, they will come back to it? What would they come back for? And I think that will help.
Thank you, but
ease your
I'm
task.
trying to focus on zoning. I just want to remind people that you can buy all the furniture you want in Sullivan. and there's a lot of sales tax. Generated by
And we get a and we all get a
I don't know if I can use public time.
we get a 25% discount.
Don't start with that now.
Coupons are good for tonight only, though.
I'll meet you there.
I think there's no question in the fact that, as you said earlier, that to be friendly, we should start tomorrow. And the only way to start tomorrow is to expedite a plan. In my opinion, to expedite a plan that'll work, you should, and what would work the fastest would be, of course, to adopt the 87 code as it was, which wouldn't take as long as it would to revise a full plan or make modifications. But you could adopt that plan, and that would make all these usages where the people are suffering with these changes, would put it back to where they could realize some benefit, some economic benefit, et cetera. And then take that year and a half you're talking about to then redo the 87 plan to what would work well now. If there's some tweaking that had to be done at the time of adopting it, that'd be one thing. But it appears to me that that plan worked a whole lot better than what we're seeing right now. We're seeing nothing right now.
First timers. Cindy.
I didn't plan on talking tonight either, but I didn't have a chance to review the zoning maps or the plan itself. But in hearing everyone speak, we hear a lot about the hotels and the bigger developments. But a year as a legislator has really shown me that Sullivan County, being uniquely different from Westchester, which is, highly developed, versus Delaware, which is even more rural than Sullivan County, you could draw a line down the middle with the development on the eastern end and my district on the western end, farms, open space, more rural. And so I'm really shocked at the lack of planned efforts for small business. And being a legislator, since day one, I was getting calls, I'd be in ShopRite, I'd be on the street. How can I start a business here? It's very difficult. Who do I go to? Where do I go? So I did a little research to try to find out who's helping small business, because you gotta face it, that's mostly what we are, is Main Streets, small, family, private sector businesses. So without looking at the plans, I would have to encourage the plan that is more conducive to small business. And just let me tell you several instances that I came up with. I got calls from several people in different towns that made efforts at nice, small, family-run businesses. They didn't realize, several of them were on the border of two towns. What's allowable in zoning over here is not allowable in the zoning over here. And one of them was a utility trailer usage. The neighbor over there in that town was using it for his construction business. This family over here that started a small business was using it as an incorporated part of running their business. They were in violation over here. They were not over here. So it's very frustrating when one town to the next, there's different zoning. So it led me to do a simple thing, which I just got support from my colleagues. I worked on for several months with a small business roadmap, because I felt that, hey, before you put your plan together and start your business, find out what your zoning is. So I'm going to unroll it in April. You'll be able to click on the government website. So if any of us are in ShopRite and somebody says, where do I go for help with small business, click it on. It's going to have the steps from I think there's a dozen steps, where to go, the resources to contact. There'll be a section for click on zoning. So if you're in the town of Callicoon, which is very different from the town of Thompson, you're going to click on and you'll be able to view your zoning. And if you're proposing a business that's, this set of zoning, you're going to know before you get, completed with the project or halfway through. Somebody's not going to tell you, oh, you can't do that here. So it's just a small piece, but my work is focusing on big business, because our economic development in Sullivan County is focused on the big businesses. The small businesses have to fight for themselves. We do have a retail abatement policy, but I think that needs to go around in the towns. If your town is for retail, you need to get in touch with them, review this retail abatement policy, and go to them. Okay, thanks.
Good. And I just remind everybody, there was a lot of zoning in that, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't zoning in that, so we want to try and keep it on the town zoning tonight. First time? All right, now we got like 10 minutes for second time. Who was over longer? You were, right? Sorry.
It seems to me, let me start off this way. My profession was sales, and in sales, we have a saying. It is, make it easy for your customer to buy from you. It's very simple. Well, here we are in the town of Liberty, and how could we possibly make it easy for businesses, developers, whatever, manufacturing, hotels, restaurants, to come here? The gentleman back here mentioned that if a developer goes with a set of plans to the planning board or the board of adjustment up here in certain towns, it's a very easy process. However, here in Liberty, it's a very difficult and complicated and discouraging process. So my very first suggestion to this board is to make it easy for people to develop here. Secondly, you should have in mind what kinds of development you really want to have here without losing the spirit, let's say, and the nature of this environment. Knowing that, and I would suggest input from as many sources as you can get to see what the preponderance of opinion is. Knowing that, then tailor your zoning to meet that need. Because now, as I mentioned before, it's putting the cart before the horse. It's wide open. Consider it a clean slate that you have to work with starting now. Because really, the town of Liberty is terrible. I'm sorry, but it is. And you're not the only ones. Take a ride throughout all of Sullivan County. It's crazy. It's a beautiful area. It has so much potential. But you have to look at it from an overview and then drill down to how you want your community to finally be. Thank you.
I don't need the mic. Quickly, there's a big urgency with the Route 86 corridor, 17 there, and also with the hotels, especially if we're talking Concord development. We cannot wait 18 months, you can't wait a month. You have to do something right now and say, we want to invite developers along 17 and along in our hotel properties. These hotels have been here for years. You have the old Paramount Hotel, you have the Stevensville Hotel, you have the Grossinger's property. Don't we want that Grossinger's property to be developed, or we want it to be an eyesore while we drive and look at the empty windows? So that cannot wait. You have to do this immediately, within the next week, 2 weeks.
Thanks for the timetable.
Well, that's what, you need it. Wait, we're not going to come back here in 2 months or 3 months. I mean, Walter's got letters of intents. The IDA voted the other day to give tax abatements and say, now you could go get your water parks here and get everything here. So what are we going to say? We want them to come to Liberty, don't we?
Yes. So, Wesley.
I just wanted to address a couple of things. Number one, the very first thing we did at the PPC was we put together a marketing plan for the hamlet. As this woman said earlier, that's the very first step when you look at zoning, is to look at what is marketable about your area. And then you figure out the zoning from there. And that helped drive our whole plan. The other thing I wanted to address is, I wanted to just, when I said that zoning is not about individuals, I think it's important in meetings like this for individuals to stand up and speak out for what they would like to see or what they're concerned about. But when it comes down to the actual zoning, that's the point when you say individuals don't matter anymore. Based on all the things I've heard, this is where the community wants to go, and this is the vision that the people want to have unfold. But the third thing I wanted to say was when I had a client do a marketing plan for development in Liberty, the marketing analysis came back and said because of the high tax rate in the town of Liberty, the only option for him was middle income or low income homes. And they basically lost interest because they couldn't make any money. And so if you're concerned about your area developing, you need to look really hard at your taxes, because the biggest reason why you're not getting any development in the town, other than nonprofit or tax exempt entities, is because your tax rates are really high. The land is really cheap. With the high tax rate, the land is dirt cheap. But with the tax rate, you just aren't going to get developers interested.
I'm very aware of where we are positioned with our taxes compared. Even you don't have to go too far to find places to live that are a lot cheaper for taxes.
Yeah.
Not just Pennsylvania. I mean, right in the county. So I know where we're positioned with that, and that's one of the reasons why that we're trying to do what we're doing here. Because I don't think we're going to get to reduce the taxes that much by being able to cut services. Because you're not going to be happy when we don't plow your road because we don't pay overtime anymore. We're going to plow it tomorrow. And you got to get home at 10 o'clock tonight. We have services that we require to do, and we're going to have to pay them. Our health insurance is up, our retirement costs are up, everything is up for the town. So I don't know how, unless we are able to do this. And we got a lot of good ideas tonight. I'm going to try and wrap it up now, and we're going to have one more comment from the floor.
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
With regard to going backwards to older maps, whether it's the pre-2011, 1987, whatever, the district names and intents would then revert back
Yes.
as well?
Yes.
And then move forward?
Well, we would do both at the same time. You could do. I'm sorry, I got my lawyers over here.
If you repeal and go back.
Unfortunately, I got two of them, so I'm not sure I'm gonna get the same opinion.
Yeah, got him. You can't even speak.
About 99% of the time with us.
My counsel is Kenny Klein, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I mean, Charlie, if you're, really, your choices, your practical choices are keep what you've got or go back to what you had. Otherwise, you're gonna be piecemealing the thing and
It would be a simpler process, but can we just change the map without changing the charts? Well, we can't, because then we actually have zones then that don't have charts.
The map was designed around the
That's right.
change in the schedule of use.
They go hand in hand.
Yes, they really do. I don't know how you can do one without the other.
That's the answer, we have to go hand in hand. I want to wrap it up, but don't go away yet, because we have to hear from the most important cast of characters, the people that are going to make this decision, located right here. And this is board comments, we end our meeting with board comments, so if anybody, Dean, any comments?
No, I want to reiterate that we're very happy people came out. Quite frankly, as I've heard over here in this corner, it's a shame we didn't have this kind of a turnout 8 years ago. If adversity made this happen, that's a great thing, because at the end of the day, we will get the right answer to the residents of
Because we weren't there.
Chris?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and when we changed that in 2010, now that I've heard everybody, in one view, I'm happy we did that, because that created a lot of controversy, and it brought all of you together to let us hear what you really thought. Because in 2010, when we sat here in the same room and laid that out with the whole public comment and the viewing and that, we had the most 7 people here, and we didn't have direction. And now we've got direction, and we can go back and work together as a group and work at it and come up with a good idea again and bring it back to all of you again to look at it to make sure that we're making the right decision that's going to best fit our community. Thank you.
Mr. Maurice?
My brother owns this building, so I get 1 extra minute. I want to just say, I've been a councilman for a long time. I'm the oldest one there now, not only in years, but in time. I worked under 5 supervisors, well, actually 4.5. And this is the first time I've seen this kind of input and this kind of physical and mental energy that's put in. And I just want to say, I feel better if I stand. I want you to know that I am part of the board that voted for this new plan. And I take full responsibility for that. Not that I did anything wrong. When we did it, it was the right thing to do. Reviewing it, I feel personally it was the wrong thing to do. I think there's a lot of controversy here now, and we gotta pull back together to get this going. And one of the sources of getting things done is communication. If we don't communicate with one another, we're never going to get this solved. Dean worked very, very hard on this. I congratulate him on that. You brought it to us. Your work was not in vain. To echo Chris, it's a good thing that happened. I just have 1 or 2 comments about this whole process that I feel very strongly about. The tax base in Liberty that everybody complains about, tax-free, I want to make a very important statement. It is not the fault of the camps. There are many free tax bases here in Liberty, and I think it's time we stopped blaming the camps. I'm a little bit prejudiced because Mayor is my neighbor. He's a great neighbor. He keeps his place immaculate. It's beautiful. It's his land. I think he has a right to do there what he feels feasible. My other neighbor, on the other hand, who I love, is very against it, and I understand that. No,
Don't single out anybody.
No, I'm just being polite.
No, you're not.
Well,
No,
I.
don't single anybody out.
All right,
I
then
want to say the
forget
word
what I
Diane
said.
because I wish everybody in this town. had as
Forget
much-
what I said then.
Yeah,
Forget.
thank you.
And I said it as a compliment to you. You didn't take it as such, so we'll drop that. Absolutely. I don't want to get on the tax basis and all that. I want to stay on what we're here for. I think the zoning, we should stay back. I'm in favor of going back and working from that map, incorporating the things on the new map that are feasible, that will work. So we do help out these people that are in deep trouble. To have zoning here that doesn't allow a hotel is ridiculous. Some of the other things are ridiculous. Not blaming, not putting any blame. We all were in this together, we voted for it. I now stand here and say, I'm sorry, I voted that way. I'm changing my mind, and I will work as hard as I can with my board, with the community. I've been, like I said, I've been on a councilman for a long, long time. I will remain as loyal and as hard as I can to work for you, because you guys are the ones that put me here for 16 years. So I owe you something, and thank you a lot.
Well, we asked for it, and we got a lot of direction tonight, so I want to thank everybody. The thing I come away with is that we'll solve this, and we'll have a solution, and we'll have it soon to getting economic growth going in here. But the thing that impresses me most is this community of ours, that everybody that comes out, and we had a good night, and people were worrying that we were going to have, people going back and forth and everything, and everybody kept it so civil and so on point and everything. So I wanted you to give yourselves a hand for sticking it out and living all these years. We need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Need a second.